Bienvenidos, sangrones. The Bleed Los podcast. Estamos en vivo. And before we get things started, let me just take care of some business here. This episode of the Bleed Los podcast is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online is your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, football, college football, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting, and your favorite casino and card games are available to play right from your phone. So head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use the promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. And now, take it away, Alonso!
So like Juan said, we're live, and we're there's still sadness in the building. It's still around. And Andrew Friedman had a press conference earlier this week, and they discussed, I don't know what they discussed, but they discussed some things because, the thing is, no matter how you kind of look at it, from what I'm gathering, kind of from the top down, no one really knows why this happened, right? As far as the cataclysmic failure that happened this postseason. I was curious to see what Andrew Friedman was going to say. Obviously, the obvious thing, hey, we need pitching. Cool, we knew that. But literally, no one has an answer on what the Dodgers can change. So let's start there. I'll to the in-house cinnamon man, Cody. I wanted to ask you, what can the Dodgers change realistically? I get it. Everyone wants all the things, right? But what can the Dodgers actually change?
Yeah, and they already mentioned it, that there's probably going to be no coaching changes, which is probably the number one thing fans, especially at this time of the year when the team doesn't get to accomplish their ultimate goal, which is winning a World Series. The first person that comes to mind to everybody's head, and we were there on the live after Game 2, after Game 3. Dave Roberts' head is usually always at the end of the stick on these. I think this year those arguments weren't valid because we even discussed, pretty much every move he made, even with the bullpen, what he did with the starting pitching, what he had. He pretty much did all he really could do as a manager. There are a couple things that, we did critique, with mound visits and all that. But I think as a Dodgers fan, especially after almost a week now after the loss, I feel like you have to take a cool and collective take and realize that it's not the manager in this situation. It may be a little bit deeper. It could be, we've been seeing recently, Trey Turner had some comments yesterday about kind of the Phillies hitting philosophies and how it's a little bit less, it's more straightforward, less information. And maybe that is the problem with the Dodgers. Maybe they are too analytical. Maybe they are too hands-on. We've seen them have similar players have other comments, like Cody Bellinger kind of had some issues with the Dodgers hitting core and their trainers. So maybe that's a step that at least I would look into, just because it seems like every year we're talking about the same thing. It's the offense. Like even with the pitching and the way it went, the Dodgers, besides Game 1 getting erase Game 1 because that one was pretty much over from the first inning on, Games 2 and 3 were easily attainable. They could have won those games, but the offense just didn't show up. So I think they really do need to take maybe a different approach, or just don't go stray too far from the approach that they had all regular season long, where it seemed like instead of working counts, being patient, they were attacking, swinging at balls outside the zone. And that's just not going to work. If you're not playing the way that you got there and you want to change things last minute, it's just not going to work. So I would say look at something with the hitting coaches, not saying replace them, but maybe just change some of the philosophies up. Maybe let the players kind of figure out their own things. That they got here for a reason. These are major league players. So let them adjust as major leaguers.
Well, and by the way, we're live. So if you're joining us, please chime in. We're discussing Andrew Friedman has a no answer for what the Dodgers need to change or what can they change. So we want to hear your answers on what that should be. Juan, I I've been wanting to talk to you about this. That's purposefully why I haven't texted you about this over the last week, because I know you have a list of grievances. So take the floor, my friend.
Look, before I go off on my tirade, I want to throw it to Babyface because he was there. So I want to ask him to let me know what the energy in the room was, because I know what the energy on social media was, and I can see the energy already on the live. That our friends are bringing Philip Lopez and Michael Carrillo. I want to know because it seemed like Canelo's friend over here, Plunkett, was really being aggressive, and I know Plashke was too, and I think a lot of it is this. The reaction was, and I know Canelo said this, it was like, I felt like I was listening to the same conference from last year. It's like he comes out there, he's super calm, and like Alonso says, you want someone who's calm and rational making these decisions. You don't want an irrational fan. And, Friedman said it, right? It's just like, I don't think we need to do an overcorrection here and stuff like that. But it seems like there was a palpable frustration that the beat writers were just saying, what do you mean you don't have to change anything? You got eliminated again. This is now the third time in 4 years that you have been eliminated in the NLDS. This time you got swept, and you don't think there's anything that needs to change? I mean, Plunkett was even like, I felt like his voice went up, and that for those of us that have been in the same room with that dude, that guy doesn't talk like that. That guy is very, very even keel. So, Babyface, before I go on my tirade, what was it like in that room there?
And that was like maybe 20 minutes into the conference. Like, so he came in, he said what he had to say, right? Kind of repetition of kind of what we heard last year, right? Same thing. And then like 20 minutes later, it kind of got around to Plunkett again. He's all like, so you're saying nothing's changing, right? That's what you're telling us, right? He kind of had to like reiterate it. And so that's kind of how it felt. Like you said, it did feel kind of like I was just here listening to the exact same thing like a year ago, right? And they even brought it up too, the same thing, like, well, we don't want to be sitting here again a year from now, blah, blah, blah. Same thing, but it's like, okay, like, and I get it. I mean, there's only so much they can say also too. Like, what are they going to tell you? Like, well, they're not going to tell you, hey, we're going to.
How about saying, you know what? He said it at the very end, but how about saying first thing when you come out of it, this is on me. This is on me. Right.
Yeah.
Even if it's true or not, whether it's not or true, that to me is a sign of leadership, because other than that narrative that's going around here that Plunkett hinted at, that this is arrogance. For you to come out there and say that nothing needs to change, you're being arrogant.
Yeah. And I mean, he did kind of, he stated that at the end, and I mean, I agree. If you would have came out there and said, you know what, the organization failed again, organizational failure. This is on me. This starts at the top for me. I didn't make the decisions that we needed to make and kind of go from there. But yeah, he went his long way, went around it, like I said, it felt exactly like the same thing we've heard before, kind of the same thing. Well, we're gonna look at all the free agents. We're gonna look at all the trades. Kind of just goes down the list of what they want to say. It made me thinking, like, I wonder if these guys, like, they have a script ready or they're prepared, from last year. Here we go. Let's roll it out again. Kind of, this is what we're going to hit on. And we're, this is what people are probably going to ask. So, I mean, yeah, that's how it was. I mean, but you can kind of feel it, everybody was kind of like, give us something, but they really didn't get nothing, right?
Now, look, Alonso, I want to be fair to Friedman, because you can't dismiss what this guy's accomplished, right? And he said it, he said it many times in that press conference. They want to win divisions. They want to make sure they get that bye in the first round. And you can't argue with that success, right? I mean, there's other teams that they do want a playoff run, and then we don't hear from them for another 5 or 6 years. And look, we've asked this question many times on this show. Would you rather win the World Series and then suck for 10 years, or would you rather be in it every year? So the thing is that set me, like I said, I want to be fair to the dude because they did overcome a lot of adversity this year. You know, there was a lot of shit that went left on them. Okay. But when he comes out there and he says, I'm going to react to the important things and react to the not important things. What the fuck? I mean, what are we in Alice in Wonderland over here? What the hell does that supposed to mean? How about you react to the fact that you guys just got swept, you know, and this is the second year in a row. Like that to me, again, Alonso, do you think he was coming off as arrogant there, or is that just, am I just projecting my anger on here?
I think it's a little bit of column A and column B, because with Friedman, you're not going to get much emotion to begin with. That's just his personality. I'll be honest. When I heard him say that, the first person I thought of was Juan Ramirez. Like, all I thought is, like, this dude's going to be pulling his hair and freaking out. I will say this. This is not Dave Roberts' fault. I've already said that, and I will say it again. So for all of you saying fire Dave Roberts, I asked you for 3 names, and no one has given me 3 names to replace him with. So you're shit out of luck. Number 2, this team was projected to win 88 games. They far exceeded that by winning 100 games, and they won the division. Yeah, they went out in a failure of a fashion in the postseason, but there was a lot of shit that happened. A lot of shit went left with this team. Shit that no one could have foresaw the Julio Urias situation. No one could have foresaw even some of the pitching injury woes that came up. But no one would have foresaw that the kids would have came up and kind of carried Master Splinter, if you will, into the postseason. And they're out there crushing it, right? And so that was unexpected. Didn't expect Jason Hayward to have the year that he had. Didn't expect that at all. Miguel Rojas coming in clutch in the shortstop position. Didn't expect that at all. He's a great shortstop, but I didn't expect him to be that good. And so even with all, and that's just some of the issues, right? Even with all of that, the issue now is I agree with something that Cody said. I think a change that needs to take place is from the philosophical side. I do think that they're driving the analytics a little too hard. And you've heard it consistently from guys that are no longer there. They love their time there, but the philosophy is a part of the issue, is what some of these guys came out and said, and they're entitled to their opinions, right? And Cody went out and I predicted it. He was going to have a great season in Chicago. And sure enough, my man's going to get paid. Trey Turner, it doesn't sound like he left pissed. It sounds like he had a great time. I mean, for all things considered, he just made the best decision for his family. And $300 million in the bank is not a terrible decision for your family. So kudos to you. But I mean, he played well the entire time he was here, right? So that wasn't an issue. But I mean, philosophy does play a factor in some of that stuff. And I don't know if I don't even think that the coaching staff is too even keel. I just think that I've said this before. I think relying too much on analytics takes away from the feel of the game. And if that's what they're going off of, if they're going off of the playbook that way, well, then that could be a part of the issue, right? But now I don't see why they're under the threshold, right? For the first time in a minute. I don't see how they can justify not being really active and going out and acquiring guys. And for the first time in about a year, is the first time that I'm thinking they're actually going to make a run at Shohei. Because if the fan base is asking for change and you're not willing to change on certain things, well, then you have to inject life into the vein, right? And Shohei would do that. It would be pandemonium and all that shit, right? But at the end of the day, that's a guy that I know everyone compliments the way that he is in the clubhouse. No one denies that he's a gamer. Fuck it. $600 million, but I mean, it's still $600 million for a guy that you're going to make that money back on anyway. And also, that's kind of what I gathered. Like when they talked about they're going to go out and acquire guys, like they understand this free agent market is dog shit. So that's good to hear, at least from the analytics standpoint. Because I listen, the Noah Syndergaard thing was another thing that went left really bad. And listen, Andrew Friedman is batting 1,000 with reclamation projects, and Noah Syndergaard was one of the first bad ones. So, hey, I'll give you a pass. But, bro, if they go out and trade for some of these guys, and we don't know who they're going to trade for. That's the other thing, too. Knowing Andrew Friedman, there's going to be a bomb in there somewhere. But I really hope they're aggressive in going out and getting whoever. Roger, you're the passionate one here, more so than Juan. Juan just gets angry. What do you think they need to change?
I mean, as a team wise or like organization wise?
Both.
I mean, it makes sense what you guys are saying. Like the analytics, I think the analytics are kind of getting a little bit kind of overboard, right? It's kind of everything it's got to be by the book, and we've seen this all time and time again. There was an interesting tweet yesterday. I don't know if you guys saw it, and I'll put it up. It was from Bob Nightingale. Did you guys happen to see that? It was Dusty Baker. So Dusty Baker he was on Texas Night about Bruce Bochy. They said that it's always harder to manage against a person than it is to manage against a computer, because a lot of the times the computer and it didn't finish there, but basically it's harder to manage against a person than the computer, right? So that, I mean, that tells me this is Bruce Bochy, Dusty Baker, right? Hall of Fame managers, right? And Bruce Bochy's been out of the game for how many years, right? And he comes back to the Texas Rangers, right? And he's on the verge of getting them back to a World Series. So I think you got to let these managers manage, like I said, with their feel, right? With their feel for the game. And then yes, if Dave Roberts is truly a horrible manager that can't manage a game, then we know, what, this is completely on Dave Roberts, and he can't manage a game and he doesn't have a feel for the game. And then you can move on from him, right? But are they going to do that, right? Are they going to let a manager go in and manage from field? That's what I want to see. I want to see, just step back from those analytics, let them play, right? Let them play how this game's supposed to be played. So that'd be my number one thing that I want to see changed. And then other things like you're saying too, goes back to analytics, is maybe like the hitting coaches, maybe they are too hands on. Maybe some of these coaches are too hand. It's got to be like this, got to be like this by the book. They got to step back from that. So I think it's more of an analytical thing that they got to kind of just step back from that.
And team-wise, do you think they need to make a change team-wise or no?
I mean, team-wise, I think this next season is probably going to be one of the first seasons, that the team really looks a lot different. Kind of, there's been always kind of this core continue to go, and then lost some players, previous years. But I think going into next season is probably going to be a lot of changes. So I think there is going to be a different look to the team. So we'll start seeing how that gels. Maybe some of the younger guys. I mean, I don't know if it's hunger that these guys are just going to be hungrier to try and get into the postseason and win it. The Bobby Millers, the Ryan Pepios, the James Almans, so we'll start seeing that change. But I think overall, it's going to start looking like a totally different team than what you had just, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 17, right?
Well, let me ask you this one. I think, Clayton Kershaw's post-game interview was, I think, similar to what we've heard in years past. I don't think it's like one way or the other. But, obviously it's another year, right? One more year added to the body, more injuries. Obviously, we don't, he alluded to the same thing. Hey, man, I'm going to see how I'm feeling, going to talk to the wife. Andrew Friedman alluded to that too. And listen, Clayton Kershaw does deserve that right to make that decision whenever, because at the end of the day, this dude's going into Cooperstown, first ballot. 22 is going to be over there next to all the numbers retired there at the Ravine. There's going to be the ceremony, the whole thing. With that said, is this Cody has alluded to this, so I'm just curious to where your position is. Do you think Kershaw is retiring, or what do you think is going to happen there?
Go ahead, Cody.
Oh, with Kershaw, we talked about it. We don't know what he's going to do. And it really depends on, he already mentioned, and it's been reported that he's going to get extended looks at his shoulder. And if it's something that requires surgery, a player at his age coming back from a major, I mentioned, the second worst injury a pitcher can have is their shoulder. It goes from their elbow to their shoulder. Those are two injuries that could pretty much destroy a career, especially someone as Kershaw is going to his age 36 season. He's got mileage on that arm. So if he thinks that he needs the surgery and that he won't come back from that, I would imagine he would probably think about retiring. But I think at the end of the day is if he can rest it, he can get ready. I think the Dodgers are in a situation where they already mentioned that if he wants to play, they would more than likely take him back. And it really should be at a diminished role. They have to plan for him being the fourth or fifth starter in a rotation. I would even go as far to say their plan for next season should be to do a 6-man rotation if they can get enough arms for that rotation. And then you're not only giving Kershaw much needed rest, but you also have to figure in their plans that Walker Buehler's coming back from his second Tommy John. Going every 5th day, could put some taxing on his elbow as well. So you want to take your time. But, I wrote about like if he gets surgery, I really don't see him coming back. Maybe the Dodgers could throw in a 2-year deal, have him get surgery, and then he comes back for one final year after rehabbing it. But do you think Kershaw would really want to do that?
Juan?
Look, here, yes, I think he is planning to come back unless physically he can't. So if the doctor's telling him he needs to go under the knife, then he's not coming back. But here's my thing, and I've seen this on the live from all the comments, and I agree with a lot of these comments on here in the sense of some people call them reclamation projects. Some people call that, I don't know what you want to call them. Here is my concern, okay? And it's going to your analytics conversation, Alonso. It's the eye test. I feel that the Dodgers really just don't buy into the eye test. It has been now, 4 years? How many times have we seen players run out of gas at the end of the year? Kershaw is a guy who runs out of gas. I don't blame him. The guy's older. I have to wonder if Mookie runs out of gas now towards the end of the year. To me, it's no coincidence that the year they won the World Series is when it was a 60-game season. What happens around July and August? The Dodgers get super hot, right? They play like they can't lose a game, right? Why is it that after that they cool off? They get these guys, they sign these guys who have a history of injury problems. And then when they get hurt at the end of the season, it's like they're surprised. And he says, well, there's a variance. We couldn't expect that he was going to get hurt. What do you mean? The greatest indicator of injury is past injury. If you are sitting here signing players who have a history of getting injured, how can you not expect that they're going to get injured again? Everybody loves what the Phillies are doing right now, right? That lineup is better than the Dodgers lineup. And right now, Dodger fans, let's just be honest, right? All right, let's have a moment where this is a safe space. Can you imagine the massacre that would be taking place right now if we were playing the Phillies? That lineup right now, they are battling, and it seems like, how the hell does Kyle Schwarber hit the ball that hard every single time? Right? It's just one of those things that I don't want to say that those Phillies players look like they are free swingers, but damn, do they look like they're aggressive, and it looks like they are taking really good swings at the ball. Like they're not like getting like these half-ass hits, right? Like they're up there swinging, and that's confidence, man. I mean, they are confident at the plate, and it doesn't matter what the Diamondbacks are throwing. The Phillies, this is like when we play out in the street or we're playing in the park. Just throw it down the middle. I'm swinging at everything. This is Vladimir Guerrero, where I don't care where you throw it, I'm swinging at it. So that's what and it goes back to what you were saying, Alonso, in terms of a change of philosophy. We had Jerry Hairston on the show. What did Jerry Hairston say all the time? It was just like, hey, I'm begging that Kike needs to be in the lineup. Why isn't Kike in the lineup? They finally put Kike in the game halfway through the game too. These are guys that, Toribio, friend of the carne asada, always, when they traded for Kike, he's like, dude, that guy just performs in the postseason. He performs in the postseason. And to hear Friedman say in this press conference that you can't predict, you can't say, oh, this guy will hit in the postseason. Yes, we can. There are people that are literally called Mr. October. There are people that had literally made a living because they hit in the postseason. And this is why I go back to the eye test. Why aren't we using guys like that? Like, instead, I feel we're going to the numbers, right? Left-handed pitcher, we got to get an all right-handed lineup. We have to have because the numbers say this. And then when the outcome goes, I mean, I guess maybe that's the difference with Bochy, babyface. Like, I feel like maybe Bochy's just like, no, I'm going to put my best 9 out there. Whoever is playing the best right now, that's who I'm putting out there. And I'm not sitting there. I mean, what did we hear before game 3? They were in a meeting. And then it was an optional workout. Okay. What were they doing in the meeting? They were probably sitting there going over, this is the history of what this guy does. Was anybody in there having a conversation of who is playing well right now? David Peralta, the whole second half was not the same player that he was the first half. The eye test. Did we not see that? Did we not see? I know Canelo can give me the words, the numbers on his OPS, but he wasn't the same player. And this goes back to in-game adjustments. I feel like when it comes to the postseason, all these other teams start playing baseball, and we're still playing fantasy baseball. And that's what's infuriating to me about this postcard is there is no. He was really quick to throw the offense under the bus. I don't know if anybody saw the Dodger shuttle go through Dodger Stadium, but it happened when he came out there and he said, well, I wasn't expecting the offense to disappear. It's like, bro, come on, man. Your starting pitchers couldn't even get out of the second inning. Yeah, I get it. Games 2 and 3, they were still in it. But what you're basically telling me is I was expecting our offense to carry us through the postseason because our pitching wasn't there. And the beat writers were saying, hey, why didn't you guys make a better effort to get starting pitching? I'll tell you why. Because we've said this every time on this show. Friedman likes to make deals on his terms. Friedman likes to win trades. So if he's going to overpay for somebody, that's not him winning. And that's what's frustrating to me, Alonso. I'm sorry, I digress.
Well, and I mean, listen, if anyone can understand what Clayton Kershaw means to this organization, it's babyface. So babyface, I ask you the same question, just with a little less passion than my friend Juan here. So same question to you.
Yeah, I mean, with Kershaw, I mean, I think he'll be back. Same like Juan. He'll be back unless he can't, right? And that's one of the things that Friedman mentioned too. They asked him about Kershaw, and he said, absolutely, he will be back. If Kershaw says, hey, I want to be back, he's there. There's no if, and, or buts. He'll be back. So, I mean, that's kind of what you want to see from the organization, right? For someone like Clayton Kershaw, right, who has been in the organization for so many years, that he has basically, you know what, if I want to play, he'll be there. So that I thought was good to see that. But yeah, I mean, there is a point that, you know, I saw a point that Kershaw can't be your number one guy, right? Like even still, he comes back, he cannot be your number one guy again coming next year. You know, he cannot be your opening day starter. He cannot be your playoff number one guy, right? I think that time has moved on, and now there's other guys that have stepped up. Kershaw could still be a part of that rotation, but now he's going to be, you know, a 3 or 4 or a 4 or 5, whatever, right? But I think that's kind of at the point that we are with Kershaw. You know, if his shoulders, you know, will be fine by spring training, or, I mean, would you do one of those deals where guys come in halfway through the season, right? Like
the Clemens situation.
You know, I'll come in June, right? If he's going to get hurt or injured, right? I'll start up in June, July, and finish off the season. So that might be something we might see from him as well.
I wouldn't mind that as long as you've got workhorses.
That's
already said, because let's be honest, guys. Wheeler and Nola. Do we have guys like that right now on the staff? Like, obviously, look, to me, it's the moment got to Bobby Miller. All right. The moment got to Bobby Ice. Maybe the second time around, Bobby Ice pitches better, just like Buehler. But when they sit there and they have guys like Wheeler and Nola who will give them 6 innings, no matter what, that makes a big difference. And that was the other thing I actually did appreciate the writers for doing in this press conference. And I was just I'm so upset by Friedman's answer on this when they kept asking him about the importance of a pitcher that can go 6 to 7 innings. And Friedman's going out there, well, who can go 6 to 7 innings in today's game? What are you talking about, man? Are you not watching the postseason right now? Those guys on the Phillies are going 6 to 7 innings. And then when he says, we're not training them to do that, that's your organization. It's your philosophy. You guys sit here and baby these guys. What happened when Nolan Ryan tried doing that in Texas? They ran him out of town. When Nolan Ryan was with the Rangers, he was trying to get these pitchers to go longer, to pitch, trying to get their arms. I mean, it's already an unnatural motion to throw a baseball, right? But to get these arm strength long, so they can go ahead and do this, right? To me, for him to sit there, and it was so disingenuous, I thought, for him to say, well, they're not training him like that. What are you talking about? Since they show up in single A, you guys limit the number of innings that they can pitch. You guys sit there, and that's the other thing that I don't understand is, hey, we want to give them enough rest so they don't run out of gas at the end of the season. Then why do they keep running out of gas? Maybe we need to get guys who aren't in their mid-30s. Maybe we need to go with younger guys. That's why I feel like when Plunkett said that it's arrogance, I was like, oh, maybe he crossed the line again, but maybe he didn't. Maybe it's like you keep insisting that there's nothing wrong, that everything is fine. It's just we're running into bad luck into the postseason. And maybe that may be the case this year, but what about the other times? And it's like, this is frustration from the fans. If you're honest with the fans, I think the fans will just be like, we get it. Like right now, everybody in the chat said, they weren't expecting the Dodgers to win the World Series this year. I mean, if we're honest, I think everybody expected them to lose in the LCS, whether it was against the Bravos or against the Phillies. And I think we all would have been okay with them losing in the LCS. But to get swept in the division series and then come out there and basically do this?
No, well,
I don't know.
And by the way, we're live in the Carne Asada. If you're just joining us, it's Festivus, and we're airing out all of our grievances after the Dodgers were swept by the Arizona Diamondbacks. It doesn't feel like it feels like it was longer than a week ago that Cody and I had our doom and gloom sesh, but it's kind of crazy that it's already been a week. But back to a point that you made, Juan. I actually would entertain the idea of Kershaw doing the Clemens thing. Mm-hmm. But the thing is you're 100% right, because if you don't have someone, the backing of the rotation to protect him, like a Roy Oswalt and Andy Pettit, who they did have in those rotations, then it won't work. So clearly, it's fair to say that the Dodgers need an ace, right? For me, listen, I am still of the party where I don't think the Dodgers are going to sign Shohei Ohtani. I alluded to that a minute ago, where I think they're going to just consider it now. But the guy that I think that should be at the top of their list is Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Like, that guy makes all the sense in the world for the Los Angeles Dodgers to be aggressive in on and go and get him, because that guy will be be your ace. Because obviously you had Julio Urias, who was going to be your ace. Shit hit the fan, and here we are. But you have that guy that's available, and you don't necessarily have to trade for him. Whereas when you don't have to necessarily pay, you're going to have to pay for him, but you're not going to have to pay what you're going to have to pay a Blake Snell per se. Or even an Aaron Nola. I still think Aaron Nola is going to get paid by the Cardinals. I don't know what that amount's going to be, but he's going to get paid. So you'd still have to piece that together, right? Am I crazy to think that the Dodgers should go out and do that, a la Kenta Maeda, Cody?
No, if you ask me, their ideal situation, especially with the amount of money they're pretty much freeing up this offseason, they can realistically do both if they want to. And I know we're giving Friedman a lot of shit basically right now, but if there's anyone that can finagle,
don't fall on the sword, Canelo. It's me. I don't want you to take credit for it.
No.
Everybody at me, because I'm the one shitting on Friedman.
No.
First of all, Juan, fuck you.
But I would say, if anyone can do that, it's Friedman. If anyone can do it, it's the Dodgers. I mean, they already have a history of getting these types of players from Japan, Korea, all that. And I agree with it. Trading for pitchers is hard. Trading for players is hard, especially now, especially with the postseason expanded. The asking price is just astronomical for players now. And that's where I think these past 2 years, that's where we've seen Andrew Friedman stay quiet. Because, Juan, you already said he doesn't want to lose these trades, and he's not going to give up his prospects like many of these fans want. The best way to get around that is to use the money. And if the Dodgers have the money and they open up the pocketbooks this offseason, which they should, they can most certainly get both of these players realistically. But they're still going to, and writers have even like Ken Rosenthal, all of these beat writers, they've already said Shohei is nice, but he's not enough, at least for 2024. He is not enough. He cannot pitch next year unless miraculously maybe he can pitch at the end of the year, because nobody really knows what he had done to his elbow. They just said it was some type of surgery that he had done at the end of the season. So you're more than likely seeing him pretty much as the DH. Dodgers really had a really good DH this year, and he didn't show up in October. He had the one lone home run for the Dodgers, but it doesn't really fix most of their problems right then and there. It fixed a lot of problems for the fans. It's like boost morale in the clubhouse. But like, yeah, we got Shohei Ohtani, like arguably the best baseball player playing right now. And do they stop there? They could if they wanted to, but they need to do more. And I really think, we talked about like the Phillies, how they have those two horses at the top of their rotation, but they have like 6 or 7 guys that are actually in their rotation. And that's the biggest thing I think the Dodgers need to address is I don't know why they're not pushing these starters, these younger guys, to go deeper into games, because if anybody's bodies can handle it, it is theirs. And I know there is, like I've written about it before in my own blog, where there is some type of epidemic with Tommy John shoulder injuries, and maybe the Dodgers took note of that and they don't want to push these guys, because you look at their roster, you would think that there is a problem because they have multiple guys getting Tommy John. They have multiple guys with shoulder injuries. But they need, I think at minimum, they need at least 6 guys in the rotation, especially if they bring Kershaw back. If they bring Kershaw back, there needs to be 6 guys in the rotations. There's no other way around that, because you can't depend on Kershaw every 5th day in the regular season. That would just put too much on him. And if you want to go with what Clemens did, like coming back midway point of the year, you're going to need someone to replace him during that time. So pitching is the biggest thing this offseason, but I would definitely agree with Alonso, get Yamamoto, sign Shohei, and then perhaps maybe I don't think they're going to really get any of the top free agent starters. So they're going to have to do some trades, and they're going to have to be creative, and they may have to just bite the bullet on a couple of these prospects, but they can do it. They can do it.
Well, and truthfully, let's also not forget Walker Buehler's coming back in 24. So you have that guy that's being added into that rotation, right? Bobby Ice, if he doesn't make the starting rotation, there's something else that's wrong there. And then you also have Ryan Pepio, right? But you still, is what the question mark is, what's Walker Buehler going to be, right? And so you look at that, and Yamamoto's 25 years old. Whatever you're going to have to pay the posting fee. You're going to have to do all that garbage. But for me, it's worth it for a 25-year-old guy, right? And a 25-year-old guy that's legit. Like his off-speed stuff, you're going to have to tinker with it a little bit. But that curveball, filthy. My man knows how to get outs just on the contact, all that shit. Be that as it may, he is the perfect, in my opinion, fit for the Dodgers without having to trade for Blake Snell and Randy Arozarena, which I still think they should do. But it's going to take the farm to make a deal like that happen. And do the Dodgers have the prospects? Sure. But does it really make sense to do that deal when you can go out and potentially get some guys like that? Juan, what do you think?
I love Rice Arena. Rice Arena is a guy that to me that's the kind of guy you want on your team, dude. You saw what he did in El Clásico. Like, that's a guy who's not afraid of the moment. That's a guy who's going to wear cowboy boots with his baseball jersey, and he's not going to tighten up. And I feel like that's what the Dodgers need, right? And it's like, I also think it's only fair to these guys in the minor league system. Like, let me ask you this right now, Canelo, would you trade Miguel Vargas to get Rice Arena? Because if not, if they're not going to give these guys a chance down in the minor leagues, and Michael Carrillo said it, Cartaya's stock is completely taking a dive now, because now the narrative out there is this guy's not going to pan out, right? And so, and everybody says the Dodgers' best prospects are pitchers. So why not trade some of these position players? And I mean, for me, I would love to see Rice Arena. If you can somehow get Glass now out there and get more pitching, by all means do it. But I mean, don't we owe it to some of these guys that are in the minor leagues, that are playing in AAA, that are killing it in AAA and don't deserve to be there anymore? Give them an opportunity, Canelo.
Yeah, you guys bring up a couple players that I've been thinking throughout the past couple days of who I think they should potentially target. And I already told Alonzo on I believe it was off air, but the top guy on my radar, if I'm a Dodgers front office guy or even a fan, first name is Tyler Glasnow. He is on the last year of his arbitration deal, $25 million this year. Then he's able to test the open market. He's more than likely not returning to Tampa Bay. What does Tampa usually do with players like that? They usually trade them away. What does Tampa need? They have a lot of pitching depth, just like the Dodgers. They're not really going to change their philosophy, but they need hitters. And what's one prospect that we know has been blocked in every position possible? Not even Miguel Vargas. It's Michael Busch. Michael Busch probably has the most upside of any Dodgers prospect right now. I believe he won minor league player of the year. Definitely won it for the organization. I mean, you're talking about a guy that I think hit, correct me if I'm wrong, probably like 35 or almost 40 home runs this year. Plays, I mean, I can't really get his baseball reference page, has multiple positions. He played first base in college, plays second base for the Dodgers, could play third base. I mean, heck, I believe they were even talking about trying to get him in the outfield just to get him in the lineup. So you're talking about a guy that is versatile. Tampa would definitely take that on. I believe they will be listening to phone calls about Glasnow. And I think, Andrew Friedman, Dodgers Rays connection really makes sense. A Rosarena will be hard to pull off just because he has been in the league for a while, but because he just lost his rookie status like 2 years ago, he still has like 3 or 4 years of control. So that's going to take a lot of prospect power to even get a star like him. But they're going to have to move on with some of these guys, not just to get players in return, but these young guys, they deserve a shot to go to an organization to get full-time playing time. But they can also give you a lot of prospects, or they can give you a lot of in return. And Glasnow is just the top one up my head, but there's a bunch of guys around baseball that they can throw around. Burns, with everything going on in Milwaukee this upcoming offseason and next year, like, what do they do? I think that's less likely, but they have to kind of get the ball rolling. This is where I think Andrew Friedman needs to step out of his comfort zone, because you got to think the time to win, like, I trust them to continue this longevity of winning, but there's only every couple years you have actually like a legit shot to just steamroll to the World Series. And I believe the Dodgers, those years were like 17 to 20. That was that window to win. Let's win not one, let's win like 3. And they put together super teams. Like, I mean, 21, I would say that's probably the biggest failure. They didn't make the World Series that year with the team that they had. You're talking about, we had Corey Seager, Trey Turner. I mean, we had all Mookie Betts, like all these guys, even the pitching rotation with Scherzer, Buehler, and the fact that they couldn't even get a World Series appearance. So now they kind of have to re-up. And we thought that was what they were doing this year. We, at the beginning of the season, we thought they were taking a step back to be competitive, but realistically, we already alluded to it. Did they think they were going to win the World Series? So, but they have to make some moves.
Like, I love it. I love that Canelo is making the deal. Michael Busch for Oppenheimer. I mean, I think that's on. And for those Sangrones on the line, Oppenheimer is this movie directed by Christopher Nolan. Anyway, I digress, Alonzo.
Well, let me ask you this, because this is someone that Cody and I talked about too. Let's say Nolan Arenado is actually available. would you want that guy on your team?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think they have greater needs.
I agree. But if you're trying to get the offense going, you got to get consistent bats. So, I mean, aside from La Rosarena, I mean, you more or less what I'm getting at is if they're going to be
Nolan didn't even get nominated for a Golden Glove. He's a loser.
Hey,
he's a loser.
My bad. He didn't get nominated for the first time in 10 seasons. Jesus Christ, Juan. But what I'm getting at is, so Cody kind of hit the nail on the head as to kind of where I was trying to go with this. They had a super team a couple of years ago, and they couldn't even make headway with that. So is this one of those things where they loosen the purse strings and go super team, or is this one of those where, hey, let's go get a few pieces and then kind of do the complimentary thing like they did this year, but with a better roster?
Yeah, that's to me what you got to do. You got to shore up the pitching. I would love for them to be able to get, look, I get it in the regular season. They're going to do what they're going to do. They're going to give spot starts to these rookies. They're going to help develop. Look, but I expect Popote, I expect Sheehan, I expect Bobby Ice to have great seasons next year. What they went through this year is only going to help them. Now, my concern is, are those guys going to stay healthy? Now, the trade deadline next year, is there anybody the Dodgers can get in the trade deadline that they can depend on in the postseason? Because this is what it all comes down to again, is the postseason. Do they have dogs in the postseason that are going to help them? Yeah, that's what my concern is.
Roger, what do you think of all of this?
I mean, but if you look back at their past trade deadlines, they got some big pickups, but they didn't help them necessarily down the run, right? And Machado, they didn't do nothing, right? When they got Scherzer and Turner, didn't help them that season, right? So they've had that history where that they've gotten that guy or guys, but it doesn't help them, progress in the postseason.
Do you think that's where the philosophy kicks in? Because I know we made a lot of fun of Scherzer for blaming the Dodgers because they didn't use him the way. Now we're getting Trey Turner making comments like these are attacks in terms of the philosophy. I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire, right? I mean, if we have all these guys that have been in this organization now and they're telling you, hey, man, this isn't working. Like, are they getting in their own players' way in the postseason? Is that's what's causing this problem?
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I mean, it sounds like it is. Like we were discussing, maybe it is too much information, right? Like you think information is good, but you can get just overwhelmed by so much of it. But as far as what you were saying, I don't need a super team. To be honest, I need a team that there's depth, right? That that you can plug in guys and guys where you need them, and guys that are dependable, that are going to be able to hit, right, and get those spots for you. I mean, just go back to this point, right? People were so pissed that you're pulling off the bench. Your best shot was Austin Barnes, right? I mean, that's where you gotta fix that depth, right? You need somebody that, hey, we're in a big spot.
Are they pulling up Austin Barnes though, babyface?
Well, I'm not necessarily saying it's Austin. I'm just saying it's Austin Barnes, right? I mean,
no, I know, but why were they
Austin Barnes?
Why were they pulling up Austin Barnes? Because they had already taken all their bench players and put them in the game earlier because, oh shoot, they're going to bring in a lefty. So now we got to get all the righties in the game. This is why I'm talking about where maybe Bochy has it, where he's just like, screw this. I'm going with the best 9. I'm going with whoever's hot right now. I'm giving those guys the at-bats.
Yeah, I mean, that's we've seen that for so long right now. I mean, they have a righty, they switch to a lefty, so they got to flip their lineup, right? As soon as they're coming up, we got to flip them around. Now we got to flip them around.
I will say, expect that next year too. So I believe 100%. It's not going to change. So
right.
Get used to it.
No, but that's the thing. I think that's what got everybody so pissed off about this press conference with Friedman, because how many of you, and this goes out to all of you guys on the live, how many of you expect anything different next year? How many of you actually think, oh, that's it. They've learned their lesson. They're going to go out there. They're going to win the World Series next year. I don't. I feel like they're going to win 100 games. They're going to win the division. And then when the playoffs come, they're going to shit the bed.
I mean, to me, it's still that if they're gonna win the division, they got to figure something out to not go cold, right? And that's to me the biggest thing, because I think those teams that just continue to play, they play hot. When you look at it too, some of those wild card teams, they were fighting for those final spots, right? Arizona was fighting, Philadelphia was fighting, so they've been already for a while. Whereas the Dodgers clinched the division, like 3 weeks till the end of the season. So they were kind of just on cruise control, finish off the season, cruise control, 5 more days off. And then it's hard for baseball players to get it going again, right?
Well, yeah.
The craziest thing I've seen in the comments today just happened. Nando3990 just said that next year they'll lose to the Rockies in the NLDS. Bro, we've already sent out the tweet. The Rockies have been eliminated from the playoffs already. I mean, dude, the one thing I will say though, I think you're 100% right, Juan. I think this is more philosophical than I think we realize, right? Because and the one thing I will say, working in sports, I do know that analytics play a big factor in game planning of all sorts. Just as an example, with football, literally every football team has a book for a game that's this big.
Except Philip Lopez's Raiders.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true, because I don't think the Raiders can afford it. But I mean, it has every single scenario that you can think of. 3rd and short, 3rd and long. Hey, you're down by 2 touchdowns, and this is what it is. And it gives you a graph that says the probability on your strengths and weaknesses against your opponent as far as what the outcome of that is going to be if you go with that decision. The thing of that is, though, is it's intended for you to still coach based on what the feel of the game is. It's not supposed to overtake the game. You're still supposed to make a decision. So if you watch, on Sunday or even on Saturday, if you watch college football or if you watch, the NFL, whichever, whoever you're mad at, whatever, I don't care. But either way, watch the head coach. There's a guy that sits around him with a book and they're flipping it. And they literally will tell the coach in their ear, hey man, this is what's going on. Seriously, that's the thing. They do it in baseball too. They just don't do it as open because they're in the dugout. So to me, if you're relying heavily on the analytics and you're expecting that to really play out how you expect it to just based on what the book is telling you, then that's a philosophical thing, because then you can't coach based on your personnel. You can't coach based on the field. And then that's when you run into these sorts of issues. To me, I think this all starts with, hey, like our good friend, Rafael Rox Arroyo, talks about it all the time. And the computers are taking over the game planning. And I think that is the case with the Dodgers, where they're hyper-focused on that. But then from there, that, like you said, Juan, I think that meeting was more – we don't know what the meeting was, but if I were to take a stab at it, they're talking, hey, this is what the matchup is. This is what it needs to be, yada, yada, yada. Until you're in the situation, you don't game plan for your starting pitcher to give up 4 fucking bombs right out the gate. Like, you can't game plan for that. And I know that's not in those books. And so
it wasn't in the analytics? You sure that wasn't in the analytics? If Manflin gives up 4 bombs, what do we do?
Maybe it should have been if anybody watched them pitch this year.
Yeah, I feel like they're right. If anything, analytic-wise, like, we were confident, like me and Alonso after Game 2's loss, like, we were decently confident in Lynn giving them a decent, like, at least getting through the order once. And what we said after Game 3 was, like, why didn't they pull him after, like, that second home run? Like, you knew it was coming because he's a fastball pitcher and he gave up 44 home runs in the regular season. Like, that was their whole thing. They said the reason why they were supposed to piggyback with him and Pepio or whoever he wanted to throw out in there was based off the analytics. Like, all right, this guy can't face the lineup a second or third time, so we got to get him out there. And he got through the lineup once. He had 2 outs and he kept giving up the long ball. So, sometimes it seems like Dave Roberts does go with feeling, and then those are the moments where it does backfire in his face, where he doesn't go out there and pull him soon, because on paper, like, I guarantee you, like, they were probably like, yeah, after like 2 home runs, or at least he gets to the lineup once, let's pull him and bring in somebody.
But see, that what you're saying there, Cody, is what our friend of the Carne Asada, Jorge Castillo, has said. Things speed up on the Dodgers in the postseason. And I'm starting to think, why is it that things speed up on them? Is it because they're following a plan? Like, I wish, and I know they only had 30 minutes there with Friedman, but I wish some reporter would have been in there and been like, why was Popote not in the series at all? Arguably, that guy was pitching the best out of all your starters in the last month. And you were saving him for what? A possible game 4?
I don't think he would have answered that question. He would have said, Dave, it wasn't, that's not a question for him. I don't think he'd answer.
Again, which is why I think people are so mad about this press conference, is because there was nothing that he said that made me think things are going to change. That's it. We're going to come out there. I'm not going to have to sit there. And now, it's like, it's going to be the same thing. That's why I was numb. That's why I was numb when they lost, because it's like, how can I even be mad?
I mean, maybe they're numb. Right? Have you thought about that too?
Then they need to get out there. They need to get somebody over there who does care. I know a lot of people on the live have been saying this, and it is a football adage too, that maybe if you hear the same voice after a while, it's just all white noise. Like, if these guys are all getting to say, hey, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. So just stick to the plan. Meanwhile, your house is getting robbed, and you're just like, don't worry, the cops are going to show up. It'll be fine. Dude, your house is getting robbed. It's like, it's just, I understand fans' frustration. At the same time, it's one of those catch-22s where, dude, they win the division every year. They win 100 games. They got to get into the playoffs. Like, none of this happens if they don't get into the playoffs. But it's just, what's so frustrating is, how many times does this have to happen before you guys realize? And that, babyface, how many times? We heard it in August. How many times did Robert say, no, we have a sense of urgency. We're not going to let what happened to us last year happen. And it happened. And it's like,
well, and I was going to ask you, do you really think that there wasn't a sense of urgency with these guys?
I feel like I didn't see it. By urgency, I mean aggression. Like, right. And I get it. Like, when they gave up 6 runs, they totally got cold cock. It was like, they were just like, huh? What? This isn't supposed to be happening. But Babyface brought up a very good point, going back to the 2020 World Series, when the Bravos were just motorboating the Dodgers, but the Dodgers made a comeback towards the end of the game. And they made the game close. They still ended up losing. And then the next game, in the first inning, they went nuts. I didn't see any of that in game 1. It was like they had all just packed up their gear and said, all right, guys, we'll get them tomorrow. We'll get them tomorrow. And it's just like, hey, dude, it's the first inning. You guys just did it a couple of months ago against the Bravos, when the Bravos came into LA and went into that huge lead. And then you guys almost came back and stole that game. Where was that energy? That's what, to me, I don't know how many more times I have to see this look in the Dodgers dugout. Like, what is happening? Like, why? This isn't supposed to happen. This team isn't supposed to. Yeah. Has anybody been watching? And for those of you guys on the live, I don't know if you guys have been watching this alternative broadcast with the Peloteros, because I know Kike is getting a lot of run, because Kike made a comment that it's like, hey, how a team celebrates a home run in the dugout says a lot about a team, right? And all we heard all year long was how much this team liked each other, how much this team rooted for one another. And it's just like, okay, that can be true, but where's the energy? Where was the energy? I mean, sooner or later, like, Alonso, is it possible to pick up on the energy of someone else? Like, if someone's got there's all like revved up and stuff like that, can you take that energy and use it for yourself?
I mean, yeah, but at the same time too, I mean, again, I don't know that I was a little surprised as to kind of how, like, it looked like it was a little low T as far as energy goes, but I honestly think they were more shell shocked than anything. Because I think you're 100% right, because they're like, yo, this is not supposed to happen. We are not supposed to be getting shit pumped like this. What do we do? And I mean, and truthfully, in the postseason, what you do is really when you prove yourself when you come back from any sort of adversity, right? Like yesterday, the Diamondbacks had no chance. The Phillies are just a machine right now. They weren't coming back from that even if they tried to.
Yeah.
But you could tell that they didn't quit, right? They didn't like pack up their stuff and say, hey, well, let's try this again in a couple of days in Phoenix. Like the other thing too is there are some guys with the Diamondbacks that also gave them some bulletin board material. Let's just call a spade too, right? But at the end of the day, like even with all of that, like you still know what the task at hand is, and you got to go out and you still got to win 11 games if you're trying to win a chip, and that's just the reality of it. And I honestly think these guys were just so shell shocked that they, like Clayton Kershaw, you could see he was just shocked.
Yeah,
like when he was seeing some of those balls, like he's just like what I'm doing everything I can here. What the fuck? And in some cases, sometimes they just have your number too, right? Like
but when Friedman said that first inning maybe happens 2 out of 3 times if you do it 100 times, and it's like, yeah, bro, but why does it always happen 2 to 3 times again when it's the Dodgers?
Well, no, and that again, that's a fair point. I honestly think what ends up happening, I think it's the analytics, the philosophy, all that shit. But I think there is something to maybe they're either out of gas or because the baseball is a very long season. It's a very long season, and everyone's a little banged up by that point too. Let's also call a spade a spade. And I think that shit catches up to you. But I mean, you could see the frustration on Freddie Freeman's face. I think that's the most frustrated I've ever seen Federico in any capacity, whether with the Braves, whether with the Dodgers. Like he just didn't have the words. And at the end of the day, you could ask him, 6 days from Sunday, or 6 ways from Sunday, what went wrong. But if a guy like Freddie Freeman can't give you the response as to what is wrong, then that's how you know it has to be one of these. I mean, and again, we're speculating, right? But it has to be one of these things because I really don't understand how all of that momentum just gone, completely gone, and you just lose sight of it.
I haven't seen Federico that pissed since whenever he sees Dylan Hernandez walk into the clubhouse. Like I get it. He was pissed, and that's why, like when I hear comments like these guys don't care, it's like, no, dude, they care. I mean, these
that's
guys,
out of pocket.
I mean, Jerry Hairston told us, like, there's nothing we can say to these guys that's going to be worse than what they're saying to themselves. But the problem is I just feel like if you all of a sudden have subscribed to all of this for a season and you've trusted, hey, these guys know what they're doing, and look, we can't argue with the results. It's going to give us 100. We won the division, but like something happens in the postseason, and nobody has an explanation for it.
Well, and I can tell you this too: Clayton Kershaw replayed those at bats in his mind for a couple days. So don't tell me he didn't care, because that dude for sure was just dissecting them as much as he could, and it just didn't get us anywhere. Okay, so clearly we all hate Andrew Friedman. So we've established that. So we're good there.
Just to not get, so Roger doesn't get in trouble. It's me. You can at me. I'm the Prince of Darkness. I'm the one that is unfairly criticizing Andrew Friedman. Look, he's the president of baseball operations, right?
No, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, the buck stops with him, right? I mean, the buck stops with him, and I feel like the criticism is fair because the buck stops. I mean, he's the guy that constructs the roster. He's the guy that oversees all the game planning because obviously he's the president of baseball ops. So, I mean, that's on him. But, okay, so we've established that some changes need to happen. Juan, you already alluded to it. So you're expecting nothing to happen.
No, I don't. I just there's part of me, and it's only because of history. We're gonna hear all this. I hate this mind-numbing off-season hot stove talk. I've already, the reports. The Dodgers are close to getting Ohtani, and then he's gonna end up signing with the Giants, right? And I look, the thing is this, and you guys are right. Ohtani isn't gonna come in. As much as I want to turn this into the Shohei Ohtani show, my concern now is what are they going to do to fill out the rest of the roster next year? You know, okay, Gavin Lux is coming back, so he's going to be your shortstop. What are they going to do with third base? They're going to pick up Muncy, but for like the last 2 months, all I heard was Dodger people complaining about his defense, right? What are they going to do at second base? Are they going to re-sign Jason Hayward? How many of you, raise your hand, are confident that Jason Hayward is going to have another season like he had this year? Because I was pleasantly surprised with the season that Jason Hayward had. But again, in the postseason, where was Jason Hayward? You know,
I mean, I think the only lock for sure, I think, is JD Martinez. Like, you have to entertain that. You have to.
And his health doesn't concern you at all?
No, honestly, no. I mean, if he plays like he did this year, I'm cool with it. Give him a year, another year. I'm pretty sure he won't re-sign because he's probably going to want multiple years. Yeah. But at the end, I mean, if he's willing to sign for 1 year, let's double the salary, 20. Hey, I'll take that all day.
I think with him though, it's like he is a good player. I think if Ohtani, say, wasn't a free agent, I could realistically see the Dodgers giving him that 2, maybe even 3-year deal to be their DH for multiple seasons. But if they're going to be serious about Ohtani, I mean, I don't expect Ohtani to sign in like 5 days after the World Series is over. Like, no. Ohtani's deal is going to take months. Like, he could wait. Realistically, he could pull a Harper and wait all the way until February and sign his deal, because there's so many different avenues that not just the Dodgers can take, but any team can take. You mentioned the Giants. They're begging for a superstar to come there. They went heavily after Aaron Judge last year, and I guarantee you the San Diego Padres are going to be all in on him again this year because they were all in over everybody last year. I don't know where they're getting the money from. Me and Roger are the biggest Padre haters on this channel, but I don't know. So, like, they may just pull some more money out of nowhere and maybe just to piss off the Dodgers, you know, throwing their money in there. But JD, I love him, but I do have some concerns about his health, especially at the end of the year. You know, he wasn't 100%. I mean, there was talk of saying, oh, he can't play day games because of his groin. Right. I don't know what type of Mayan science that is, where they're like,
he has to do Tai Chi all day to get ready to play. But Canelo, you bring up a very interesting point. The Giants could wait everybody out because nobody expects them to do anything next year.
Correct.
So they could go ahead and suck next year, right? So that might be an advantage that they have. Meanwhile, other teams are like, look, we need to know what you're doing because the longer we wait, all these other players are signing. And now what are we going to do?
Well, and I mean, and even then, I mean, I agree with Cody. I don't think the Shohei deal is going to be done quickly at all because that's not going to be a traditional deal anyway. It's going to be multiple years, and you got to find the right suitor where they're cool with him being a two-way player. Like all this bullshit of, oh, he needs to decide if he's going to be a pitcher or a hitter. Bro, that ain't going to happen. The unicorn is going to get a deal. It's just a matter. It's not, it's just going to take time, right? But
Alonzo, let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
If you see the Dodgers start signing a bunch of cheap veterans, do you think that means they have intel that they're going to get Ohtani?
If it were me, if I were constructing this roster, I would go balls to the wall and not sign cheap veterans. I'd go and acquire a fruitful roster of depth around that guy because I don't think that guy can just carry your team, right? I mean, granted, you have Freddie Freeman, you have Mookie Betts on your team already, and you already have your James Outmans of the world, you have your Gavin Luxes of the world already there. But, I mean, you're still going to have depth, right? You're still going to have to give the guy a day off. You're still going to have to give other guys days off. So you have to do that. So that's how I would construct it. But knowing Andrew Friedman, he's got a really good poker face. So it's kind of hard to tell which direction he would go in. If he's going to listen to the fan base, which I know he's not going to, that's what I would think he would do. But I would say it's 50-50 at that point if he hasn't signed with anybody. I should also add. The Giants, I do think, are a dark horse in the Shohei sweepstakes because, like Cody said, they've been dying for a superstar, and Shohei would be it. I'm still convinced he's going to be a Seattle Mariner, though. I don't see how the stars have kind of aligned because they're good. They're going to get better. That's a guy that would help that process out, that project, because the Japanese love projects, and that's a great project for a Shohei. So I think that would be the case. By the way, the Houston Astros beat the Texas Rangers 8-5. I know that makes Roger incredibly happy. But Cody, do you think if that's what the Dodgers were doing, do you think they would be in on the Shohei sweepstakes?
I don't know, because I feel like it would also just be very Dodger-esque to sign some veteran guys and say, hey, guy that played on the Rays like 8 years ago, come over to the Dodgers. We have a good relationship.
Just say his name, Evan Longoria, third baseman. He'll fit in.
I already have one on
nicely.
my radar that I think that they may sign, and it's an outfielder that's a lefty, and that's probably Kevin Kiermaier, who they were interested hard last year. So get ready
that
for him.
Wouldn't surprise me either.
Yeah,
Look,
so get ready for him. To
I
come
would
to Dodgers.
scream in that, but at this point when it happens, I'm just gonna laugh and give you credit for it.
Dude, you better tweet it out that I was the one to break it. I didn't even have any sources, but I just broke it. But yeah,
when Passan breaks that, hey, no, Cody Snaver
Exactly.
6.
You bet I'm gonna bet. He was like, give Cody credit.
I think if the Dodgers are going to be in on Shohei, we don't know, because I think if Friedman had the choice of going all in on Shohei, I would put that near like 10%. Like that would be his decision. I think his philosophy would be like, all right, Shohei is going to cost this X amount of dollars. How can I replace that production with this amount of dollars? And that's what he would do. I think if the Dodgers get Shohei, it has to be a total organization, not just Friedman, it has to be from the ownership, that entire ownership group. They all have to be involved in this, because that's a franchise altering player. And I don't care. Like, even if they get to the playoffs and say they lose next year, like at the end of the day, this is a business. And you can look at the Phillies with Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper's only making like $26 million this year. The amount of money that they've made off of marketing him, selling his jersey, selling out the stadium. Like, I live in the Philly area. Like, it's a big difference. Like, even Phillies fans, when they weren't even in this like title run they are in now, they were like, in year 1 or 2 that he already paid for that contract for 300 and X amount of dollars because of the marketing and what he brings in. Shohei's probably like that times 10. And that's what the Dodgers would be looking for. So it's more of, yes, it's good for the business, but it's also good for the team. But I think if they do go in on Ohtani and he signs later in the offseason, you still have to make moves, and then you figure it out after. Like, if they have to shed payroll somehow, they are the Dodgers. They can afford whatever they want. But if they want to maneuver some payroll, you make those trades in February. You cut ties with some guys, maybe release them, eat that dead money. But you can't just stay and wait for one player. You have to make your moves. If he ends up choosing you, then like, oh shit, well, guess what? We have to trade Chris Taylor because he's due the $13 million. Let's get him off the books or whatever, and then fill around the roster. That's what I think that they should go in with, that idea. Do they do it? I mean, if it's just Friedman, probably not. But if the ownership gets in and we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, and they're like, hey, you got to go all in. We want Ohtani. We want him for the marketing. We want him on our team. Figure it out, and then figure out the rest of the roster after. I think if Friedman has the go ahead from that, then he'll do what they say. Those are his bosses.
Well, and here's the thing. Let's also just be real. Whatever team signs Shohei Ohtani, regardless of what they pay the guy, they're not going to be worried about it, because that money that dude is going to pay for himself. So I honestly am not worried about the money per se, especially with the Dodgers. I mean, because let's also remember, the Dodgers told Carl Crawford to fuck up, and they owed him $72 million. Like, they just, okay, cool. Like, they weren't worried about that. Even with the Trevor Bauer situation, like, that wasn't a cheap decision either, right? Granted, in the moment, it had to be done, but that wasn't a cheap decision either. So if there is a team that is willing to do that, it is the Dodgers. That, like Cody said, if they got to shed payroll, if they got to finagle some stuff, they'll do it. I've always thought the threshold talk was more of a business decision instead of a baseball decision. And just knowing kind of the background of ownership, That's why I've never really looked too deep into it, because Stan Kasten told us, if it makes sense, we'll go out and get a guy. But it just has to make sense from the top down, right? And Shohei, for most organizations, it makes a lot of sense. The Yankees were selling Shohei jerseys at Yankee Stadium earlier this year. So if the option is there, I know they'll seriously look at it if it makes sense. It's not a knock on the baseball ability; it makes sense. And I do agree with you, Cody. I think Bryce Harper is grossly underpaid. And he's proving that right now in this postseason.
Should easily make like $40 million a year. That's what his market value is.
Yeah, easy. Roger, we haven't heard from you in a sec, so I wanted to ask you, because I know you are an ardent Shohei guy. I know you want him. I know you want this to be the Shohei all the time podcast. So I want to ask you, do you really think that that's going to be a thing for starters? And number two, if putting Juan's scenario in play, if that is the scenario, how would you look at it?
Yeah, I definitely think they're going to make a run for it. I'm not sure he's going to wait until like February to sign. I think, it is going to be, a complicated deal, and it won't be done 5 days after the World Series. And it makes it very interesting though, because like the one team that's given him everything, right, is the Angels, right? They're giving him just everything, whatever you want. Now, how many other teams are going to be willing to do that, right? Like, hey, we're going to change our rotation for you. Hey, we're gonna have all these whatever it is you need. You need, special food. You need, special people, like different training staff, different whatever, right, to be on the part of this team. We're going to do that for you. So, that kind of enters my mind too. And I'm like, I wonder if the Angels actually do have a shot, right? Like, would he just stay there for comfort wise, right? Comfort. But other than that, I think the Dodgers do have the edge. I feel he does want to kind of be a Dodger, right? I think he they've courted him for many years. He was close to coming here previously, so I think they have an inside track there. But yeah, I think it's they got to sign him, and then if they start signing a bunch of different veterans, like Cody said, I think that is what they're going to do. They are going to they're going to get guys. They're going to, if it's Jason Hayward again, if it's David Peralta again, they're going to fill it up with those guys that they know that are veterans, that are leaders, that they're the guys that they kind of always go for, those type of guys. But it wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, they're getting veterans, they're getting Shohei.
They're filling the 40 man. That's what they're filling. That's what they'd be filling.
Exactly. And there's, like I said, there's gonna be a lot of space probably, right? There's gonna be a lot of guys that they have to fill that space up with, and it's gonna be that, or going back to what we were saying earlier, is this is the time to make the moves with those young guys, right? If you can get something for Bush, do it, right? If you can get something for Vargas, do it. Cartaya, do it. Cartaya, he's fallen not that much, on the top of the prospects, but the number one prospect now is who? Dalton Rushing, right? Another catcher. So it's like, which one of those are you going to move? They're going to have to move somebody eventually. So do it. This is the winner to do it, and get, maybe go a little bit younger, right? Trade, and then get those mid-range players and kind of just fill up that roster, right? That's going to kind of be now going into next season, you have a different feel, right? Now you kind of, this team feels different, and maybe now there's going to be a different outcome.
I just want to say this real quick before we end the show. I love our listeners, our viewers, the guys who come on the live, the guys and gals that come on the live. I love you guys. Dude, Sal and Pablo and Nando, you guys have been killing me all night. Nando 390, you're absolutely right. In my words, Bob Costas is in my fight club, and I say fuck Bob Costas for the rest of my life. Pablo, that's exactly who the Dodgers need, is Kenny Powders. And Dude Sal, you're absolutely right. Get ready for $150 in general parking, $30 micheladas. It's you guys have been great. You guys are the best. We love that you guys support the show. We love that you guys enjoy these lives. I don't think this is going to be the last one we're going to do, because I think there's going to be a lot more Dodger news coming on in the offseason that we're going to have to react to.
Correct. And before we wrap it up, I want to do something that Cody and I did for the last one. as we send everyone off and Juan has to handle some business for us, what's a hot take from this conversation that you want to throw out there? Cody already got fucked on one because he said that Dave Roberts was going to be fired, and well, breaking news, they're not fucking firing him. So Cody, no, you can go first.
Hot take. I'm gonna say pass. Let me think about it.
That is hot. That is super hot.
Juan?
My hot take is that Kershaw is going to go under the knife, and he will not let anyone know whether he's retired or not. He's just going to have surgery.
Roger?
I kind of like Juan's hot take because that would be perfect. You know, if he goes under the knife, we don't know what's going on, and then come June, right?
Shows up like Kenny Powers with fireworks coming out of the
Kenny Powers.
So can I just add to Juan's hot take that he'll come, you know, back like in June, July?
Babyface. I mean, his face looks different, right? Towards the end of the season. Like for me, this is the first time I've seriously considered that Kershaw is it's closer to the end than it is to the beginning. I always thought, he's going to come back. This is the first season that I feel like, he's seriously talking. Like when I saw him in Texas with his family, I was like, that's real. Like for him to be able to bring his whole family, then they come to see him watch, that's real. But towards the end of the season, he just had a look on his face like, I don't know why I can't do what I've done my whole life. Like him realizing that his body is betraying him. That's a real thing. And that's why I think, like Canelo said, there is something wrong in that shoulder. And they're going to find it. Because who was the other guy the Brewers guy, the Cerveceros guy, right?
Woodruff
has a shoulder thing.
Yeah. Now he's out all next year
and the thing with Kershaw too is like he still didn't. It wasn't a bad season for him. When you look at it,
was a great season. Anybody else would kill to have that season.
Yeah, and it's like we don't know. And even at the conference, they asked Friedman about Kershaw, and he said, "No, he'd have to tell you what it is." Like so, there's just so much secrecy that it makes you does think like maybe he does have to go under the knife, right? And maybe it is something like that because they're not saying what it is, and I get it, right? I mean, it's nobody else's business, right? But I mean, you kind of want a little bit of transparency there, knowing what's going on with Kershaw.
Yeah. Well, and he's also going to be 36 next year. I mean, the end is nigh. I mean, it's not, you can't go forever, right? I mean, at some point your body is going to betray you because Father Time's undefeated. Before I ask Cody for his hot take to pass it back, I think the Los Angeles Dodgers are going to sign Yamamoto. Sorry. I think in my mind, it's kind of a no-brainer, but it's also a Dodgers move to go after that guy because he's 25. And if instead of paying a guy, let's say Blake Snell gets, I don't know, a Trevor Bauer deal, 3 years, 110, 120, somewhere in there. That money, I mean, Blake Snell isn't 25. I mean, granted, he's had a great year, but, after 30, the situation changes, right? Whereas you also know that the Japanese guys typically don't have the same amount of miles on their body as they do here. So I think that's the move as far as the Dodgers go there. Cody, you've had some time to ponder. What do you think?
I mean,
just don't say they're going to fire Dave Roberts again, though, please.
That was more of like, all right, that's an actual hot take because I didn't believe it. But I'll go off of kind of what Friedman did allude to, where he did kind of say there is going to be roster changes. What that means, we don't entirely know. I do think that maybe a fan favorite or two may be on the move. I already mentioned.
How dare you say that about Austin Barnes?
Yeah, Austin Barnes. Yeah, if Kershaw doesn't come back, I don't think Barnes comes back. I'll put that on there. But I do think they will have to move some guys that we've already accustomed to. If I had to put a name on it, one guy that I don't think many people are talking about, but I already mentioned just briefly, I think Chris Taylor may be moved because I kind of saw what they did with AJ Pollock towards the latter half of his deal where he had a a year left. I think Taylor has 2 plus an option. So, I mean, Taylor, has he played to that contract? Maybe. He's dealt with some injuries, but his statistics, even coming off the bench, hasn't been the pre-2021 Taylor that we've had. But, I feel like if they're going to sign Ohtani and they're going to get some other guys, they're going to have to move money. Like, they are the Dodgers, but they are the penny pincher Dodgers too. So if they can free up $26 million, I feel like Taylor's a no-brainer, because I really think they're not going to really do much with the starting 9. I've been preaching that they just fix the bench, because I feel like that's been the biggest Achilles heel. Because if you go in 2020, they've always had a deep bench. After that kind of went downhill, because now those guys went to go play for other teams as starters, and the Dodgers have been their bench has been different like every year, where those core guys like Kiki, Jock, all of them, they were there for like 4 or 5 years. I think the LA needs to kind of get back into that consistency, and they kind of may have to move on from some guys. So I would say Taylor's the name to look out for, though.
What did Austin Barnes do to you is what I want to know.
It's so hard.
He takes at bats. That's what he does.
Say goodbye.
Wow.
To Austin Barnes.
Listen, and I feel bad for the guy, because he's just catching strays left and right. Well, we've been live. So for those of you that joined us, thank you. We appreciate all the comments and the engagement. I do like that. I do think the Dodgers need to sign Kenny Powers. I think that's the only
Kenny
one that makes
Powders.
sense. And if you don't know, Juan will randomly throw in how much he hates Bob Costas. So that's honestly my favorite part of all these shows, is anytime that Bob Costas can catch a stray, I know Juan will throw it in there. So thank you to whoever made that comment.
Yes. By the way, my apologies. Andrew Friedman will never come on this show, and Bob Costas will never come on this show because of me. So my apologies again.
Actually, we should put a list together of people that won't come on because of you, and then just kind of keep it on hand at all times, just for when it. Yeah.
Hey, I talk shit on Tom Niederfear all the time, and you guys got him to come on the show.
Well, that was a bit, but it still happened. But it was a bit, and a good bit too, though. But thank you guys for joining us. Like Juan said, there's gonna be something that's gonna happen, whether it's now or in February. Who knows? I mean, who knows how this is all going to play out? I hope we're not talking from between now and until February, because that means ain't shit happened, and that ain't good. I think that changed. None of the change that aside from Cody still being wrong about his hot take, nothing happened, and that's even worse. But thank you guys for joining us, Juan. If you wouldn't mind handling the business and sending us off.
Absolutely. So. If you guys haven't already, make sure you guys we should have told you this from the beginning. If you want to see the whole press conference that Andrew Friedman gave, it is on our YouTube channel. So you can go ahead and listen to that scintillating conversation that he had. But if you guys want to know when the next live is, you guys need to make sure you guys are following us on social media, whether it be on Instagram or on X. Make sure you guys are subscribed to not only the podcast, but to our YouTube channel. Yo ha sido su servidor, Juan Ramírez, de parte de mis colegas, Alonso, Canelo, and Babyface. Nos vemos para la próxima. This episode of the Bleed Lows podcast has been brought to you by betonline.ag, where the game starts. Nos vemos, and can Bob Costas que chingue su madre.